The second you stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop begging someone to finally understand you, something shifts on their side that most people never see coming. What follows feels almost scripted, like a quiet chain reaction running through their day, and recognizing it early can save you months of self-doubt and self-blame. If any of this is landing, hit like, drop one word in the comments naming the exact moment you finally walked away, and let us walk through every stage together so nothing about it can catch you off guard again. Clarity is never cruelty, even when it feels that way, and you are not the unpaid manager of somebody else's ego, and that one sentence alone can carry you through the hardest days after you leave this kind of person behind. The first beat is pure disbelief, and it is the most underestimated of all 8. People who rely on constant emotional control are wired to expect specific things from you. They expect you to chase, they expect you to cry, they expect you to be the one who breaks the silence after every fight, they expect you to apologize even when you clearly did nothing wrong, they expect you to soften first, and they have built their entire sense of safety around that pattern. So the moment you quietly stop doing any of it, their brain does not really know where to file the new information. Your calm reads as temporary at first. You are just tired this week. You are just overthinking. You are just going through a phase, and you will bounce back by the weekend, or by their birthday, or by the next big fight they cause. Outwardly, they act like nothing has changed at all. They send memes, they text about nothing, they drop in references to old inside jokes as though the relationship never really cracked. That flat, unbothered surface is not confidence. It is denial in motion. If they accepted that you had actually pulled away, they would have to sit alone with the unbearable thought that their grip on you is fading. And that single thought is something their self-image honestly cannot afford right now. During this first stage, you will see them testing the water without even realizing what they are doing. They send a vague emoji, a casual, "You alive?" a song they used to send you years ago. They are scanning for the old spark, the old tilt in your voice, the old apologetic sentence they could lean on for the next 3 hours. When none of it lands, confusion builds quietly under the surface while they keep smiling on the outside like everything is fine. Disbelief works as a psychological buffer. It protects them from having to feel shame, inadequacy, or the terrifying loss of being in charge. Save this one phrase from the whole video. The absence of your reaction is louder than any sentence you ever said, and it stays loud long after the text stops. In the second stage, denial cracks open and urgency rushes in to fill the gap. The moment they sense, even subconsciously, that your attention and emotional energy are no longer free for the taking, anxiety spikes hard. Suddenly, they become a completely different version of themselves. Messages multiply. Voice notes appear at midnight. They remember birthdays they forgot last year. They bring up memories you had honestly assumed they had deleted. They talk about the connection as though it were the most unique thing they have ever experienced, which to them, it absolutely was. Unique supply is hard to replace, and they already know it. You might even receive sudden apologies. So sudden they almost feel rehearsed and almost always vague. I know I was not perfect. I have been thinking about us a lot. I am in such a different place now. Look carefully at what is missing in those sentences. Direct ownership of harm, specific change, real accountability. They are not rebuilding anything with you. They are refilling their tank using your energy. And the second you spot that, the spell loses about half its power. If warmth alone does not draw you back in, the pressure multiplies, because restraint was never really their strong suit anyway. Dramatic confessions flood in. I cannot sleep without you. I have never felt this for anyone. You are the only one who actually understands me. Every single line is engineered to tug on your empathy, your sense of responsibility, your fear of being the cold one who left. The boundaries you set feel like obstacles to them, not signals to respect. And that difference alone tells you almost everything about what this connection was actually built on. When charm and urgency fail completely, the third stage arrives, and it almost never arrives quietly. What looked like tender affection flips into raw hostility overnight. The same person who sent you soft words last week is now publicly or privately questioning your entire character. You become cold, ungrateful, manipulative, never really loving them in the first place. Devaluation is the tool they reach for because it protects their fragile self-image fastest. If they can convince themselves that you were always the problem, they never have to look at the wreckage they left behind. Not even once. The emotional whiplash in this stage can feel genuinely brutal. One week you were the love of their life. This week you are the villain of their entire story. Layered on top of the criticism comes gaslighting. Quiet and confident. They question your memory. They rewrite shared events. They take small disagreements from 3 years ago and present them as evidence that you have always, secretly, been unstable. None of this is random. Every cutting line is sized to provoke a reaction because in their internal world, even negative attention beats being ignored completely. This is also the stage where mutual friends start getting strange, carefully worded messages. Edited versions of what happened between you circulate, all positioning them as the wounded one and you as the aggressor. If you ever feel tempted to defend yourself in this window, stop. Defending yourself is precisely what they want you to do. Your quiet here is your sharpest weapon, even when it tastes a little like swallowing glass. If you need a hook to remember, here it is. When they start insulting you, your silence is louder than their entire outburst. The fourth stage often looks very different on the surface, and that is exactly what makes it the most confusing of the 8. After rage fails to pull you back in, they switch into full victim mode, and they switch hard. Suddenly, they are the wounded one. They share stories about how lost they feel without you. They hint at depression, loneliness, sometimes even health scares. The framing is careful, almost surgical, designed to land exactly where your guilt lives. Your distance, not their behavior, becomes the written cause of all their suffering in their version. Guilt becomes their favorite tool. They remind you of sacrifices they made, of moments they stayed for you, of all the times they claim they put you first, while quietly implying that you now owe them your peace of mind in return. If you are naturally empathetic, and most people reading this probably are, this stage can be the cruelest one of all because it wears the costume of genuine remorse. Tears show up. Regretful language leaks into conversations. Self-critical sentences sneak in between the lines. But look underneath the surface for one slow minute. The apologies, if they exist at all, are wrapped in pity. Wrapped in, but I was also going through so much. Wrapped in explanations that calmly shift the weight right back onto you, your reactions, your standards, your so-called unfair expectations. There is no real accountability, only just enough staged pain to make you wonder if you are finally being too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. The second you move in to comfort them, to explain yourself, to reassure them that you are not the monster they just painted, the entire cycle resets in one clean click and your needs get pushed straight to the bottom of the pile again. Hold the line here, even when your chest physically aches, because crossing this line is exactly what keeps people stuck for years, sometimes decades. The fifth stage is where they turn away from you entirely and toward the outer world to quiet their restless, panicking ego. A new partner usually appears, sometimes shockingly fast, sometimes loudly posted, sometimes quietly hidden, but always symbolic. Public posts arrive, exaggerated affection, curated happiness, smiling photos taken at the exact spots you once visited together. None of this is genuine connection. It is performance, and the audience is specific. You, mutual acquaintances, whoever, might rush back to tell them how amazing they suddenly look. Right alongside the new flame, a smear campaign often blooms in parallel. Distorted stories about you begin making the rounds. You become unstable, cruel, demanding, the one who could not handle them, the one who was secretly the problem all along. Twisted versions of past arguments show up in conversations you are not even part of. This pattern serves two very clean purposes. First, it protects their public image so nobody ever questions how they treated you behind closed doors. Second, it reinforces their private story that they were the wronged party, never the cause, never the aggressor. Sympathy harvested from outsiders becomes another form of fuel, another way to avoid sitting alone with the shame your quiet withdrawal produced. If the new source keeps supplying steady admiration, their panic eases for a while. If that source dries up, do not be surprised when old messages start arriving in your inbox again, as if nothing painful ever happened between you. This cycle rarely ends. It mostly just hides itself for a season and waits for you to let your guard down again. Subscribe if you want a clear breakdown of every single stage the moment the next one kicks in. In stage 6, the noise finally fades. But please do not mistake that for closure. What replaces the chaos is a quieter, more covert presence. Calls and texts slow down or stop completely. Public drama disappears. From the outside, it can look like healing, like maturity, like them finally letting you breathe. Underneath, something very different is going on. They are still watching, mostly in silence. They check your stories. They like an old photo of yours from a fake account they think you cannot recognize. They quietly ask mutual contacts about your job, your relationship status, your mood, your medical results, when they can find them. Information becomes their substitute for direct control. They stay close enough to feel connected, distant enough to protect their ego from the sting of another rejection. This stage creates one of the most disorienting effects of the entire pattern. Their sudden calm can quietly convince you that things were never really that bad, that you exaggerated, that you overreacted, that they have finally changed for good. That doubt is itself a residue of the dynamic you survived, not proof that they grew. Internally, they are running constant calculations without ever telling you, is she lonely yet? Is he weaker professionally this month? Did that weekend post mean she is opening up to new people? Give them even a sliver of softness, one warm reply, one Instagram like back, and the entire earlier playbook can quietly resurface, often disguised as casual, almost innocent contact. Do not mistake their quiet for healing. Most of the time, it is just ego surgery with a very long recovery time. Stage 7 is where the pattern gets long-term strange, and this is the part that confuses people the most. Even after months or years of almost zero contact, you continue to live in their internal story as a symbol, not as an actual person. Rare messages still arrive, almost always timed to moments when you might be emotionally exposed. A sentimental holiday greeting, a nostalgic photo, a sudden, how are you genuinely doing, that feels strangely out of nowhere. If you respond warmly, the door creaks open about an inch and they test the hinges immediately. If you do not respond, they return to their rewritten story, that you were never all that important anyway, that they simply outgrew you, that they were the ones who walked away first and felt nothing. The reframing is constant, almost compulsive. In their private version of events, they are the main character, you are the minor chapter, and the ending is always authored by them, never by you. Accepting that someone disengaged, stayed gone, and recovered fully without them is psychologically unbearable, so they simply do not accept it. Instead, they slowly reshape the memory until it no longer keeps them awake at night. You might also notice something subtle but oddly powerful in their behavior afterwards. They frequently become more controlling, more guarded, more suspicious in their future relationships because your quiet left a quiet, permanent bruise on their sense of being needed. Your absence becomes the silent measuring stick they judge every future partner against, even when they would never say that out loud. This stage proves one thing very clearly. When you zoom out, silence does not equal peace. It often equals postponed pressure stored somewhere dark. The 8th and final stage is actually yours, and it is the one that quietly matters most of all. This is the space your steady, consistent disengagement finally carves out for your nervous system after months or even years of tension. Their influence over your inner world begins to lose its grip. slowly at first, and then more obviously. The tricks they once used to pull you back in, the bait, the guilt, the rage, the performative new relationship happiness, none of it works anymore because your emotional availability is simply no longer accessible to them in any format. You have become an unmovable wall. And that wall is what finally breaks the feedback loop they rely on to feel powerful at all. In place of the chaos, peace arrives. But it almost always arrives strangely. Your body, which spent months or years running in a quiet state of hypervigilance, does not always trust the silence right away. You might feel delayed grief hitting you on a random Tuesday afternoon. You might get sudden waves of anger long after the official breakup. You might find yourself almost texting them just to test whether anything still works. None of that is regression. It is integration. Your mind is finally working through an experience it had to compress and suppress while you were still in the middle of surviving it. And that processing takes time, real time. Slowly, contrast starts teaching you the truth. Healthy people do not make you rehearse long apologies before speaking to them. Healthy people do not punish you for setting boundaries. Healthy people do not vanish and reappear whenever their mood swings. The absence of chaos becomes solid, countable evidence that you really are safe now, and that evidence builds quietly while you sleep. Self-trust rebuilds itself with almost boring consistency. You stop rehearsing explanations. You stop questioning whether you were secretly too much. You stop measuring your worth by their approval or their silence. And here is the part most people completely miss at first, even when they still cross your thoughts from time to time. The emotional charge attached to those thoughts drops dramatically on its own. What used to feel like an open wound begins to feel like a healed scar, visible, real, but no longer defining how you move through your day. That is the real victory in all of this. Not that they somehow changed, not that they finally understood what they did, but that you stop needing them in order to feel whole on your own again.